To all of our viewers, hello. Margaret started this and told me to start without her. I'm having some technical difficulties, and she is having some technical difficulties. So give us just a second. Um, we are going to get this going and try to get this fixed up. So give us just a second to get this going. This is the this is what happens with technology. Hold on.
So I'm assuming Zay is coming back. Yeah, this is a good one. I had a meeting that I had to attend. Hey Zay.
Hey, I
So,
was having some issues with my computer. The light kept
so I'm
flickering.
gonna, yeah, I'm gonna move in a minute. I'm gonna shift myself and go off camera once I say it. But one, you know what? Cave said something else to us because we normally pray out, but we don't pray in. But today, me and Zay didn't really get to talk because I had a meeting. We jumped on, and so I do want to offer this. Like, God, set this space because today is a heavy day in the space of it being All Saints Day, in the space of it being a day where there was a massive amount of loss that people are now feeling. God, cover Atlanta, cover Houston, cover Chicago, and cover all the other areas. I want to say it was Florida, Jacksonville, all the spaces that experienced gun violence, in all the spaces that had to experience the voices saying that is this their culture. Dispel the lie and present his truth. In Jesus' name, amen. So, normally, me and Zay really do try to stay up to topic. Um, and uh, it's very difficult when you have to deal with the death of a 28-year-old. And for me today, I had to process that this dude, not only did my nieces grow up listening to him, but shoot, in real life, they lived in Atlanta, so they probably got to know him. Or they ran into him because he was a regular guy. So a member of Migos, Takeoff, was shot during an incident after a game of dice. There have been rumors circulating, people trying to make those rumors true. Truth is, based upon the news, he stood up, and the bullet that was meant for somebody else landed on him. And then the statement that has been made or that has been said is, oh, that's just a part of their community. What do you mean that that's just a part of their community? It wasn't just a part of their community when it happened in Parkland. It wasn't just a part of their community when it happened in Newtown, Connecticut. It wasn't just a part of their community when it happened in Buffalo, New York. It wasn't just a part of their community when it happened in San Jose. It wasn't just a part of their community when it happened in Alabama. All of these happened in the last 2 years. Wasn't just
It
part of
wasn't,
that, but
it wasn't a part of their community when it happened at Auschwitz, and it
mm.
happened in Germany.
You went all the way back. Oh, you tagging them. That's what you come through. Come
It
through.
wasn't a part of their culture when they took millions of people from a continent and brought them to another continent and massacred the original people living here, and then brought a whole new group of people here and tried to take their culture. And then when they kept their culture, told us that it was demonic and evil, to the point now where some folk who look like us are still saying it's demonic and it's evil because somebody else told them what. So and I'm not gonna lie, Margaret, because you know what happened to me this weekend. I have not been up on everything I should have because my mind has been somewhere else, with a lot that's going on in my own personal.
No, and the reason, today I was gonna go in because life is too short. You never know when you gonna walk outside, get in your car, tell his business today, and somebody gonna be doing some dumb stuff and you get affected.
Yeah.
But you never know when you're gonna be at the barber shop with your boys in another state and you just stand up and say what happened and you die. You never know.
Yeah.
When you just speak in your mind, putting yourself out there because you think you can trust the room, and then you get stabbed and you got to be isolated. You never know when you got to hit that. You never know. So here's this in between. So a lot of y'all probably looking at the text. Sasso and Mark. I went with Luke because that's the one I studied. And y'all probably like, man, what does this have to do with today? Well,
Luke
I'll
what?
come back and read it.
Because you didn't put it up. So Luke what?
I did Luke 8.
Yeah, I'm just saying it so people can see.
Oh, okay, yeah, Luke 8, 40 through 42, and then 49 through 51. I did not go down.
I was already at 49. I
did not go down to 54 on purpose because I know it's hope in the text, but we're not even talking about it. We're actually talking about the in between. Now, me and Zay good for giving y'all an in between. Yeah, we're gonna give you an in between tonight because tonight.
And I don't know what's going on with my camera. As y'all can see, I got but it's got me
tonight.
It's got me in the darkness. Ha!
Well, tonight, what we're talking about is only built for infinity links. Now, if anybody listens to music, this is the latest album by the Migos. That's the title. And they talk about infinity links and what they do and the fact that these infinity links keep going and going and going. So again, what does text have to do with what happened? Well, it has everything to do with this because in the middle of something going on, something else happens to pull you out of your space that may lead to somebody else who was once alive when you was headed to them dead. And it's so much stuff going on that you cannot figure out where to go and where to be. And so something might just pull you. And so in the text, we have a man by the name of Jairus. Excuse my countryness. And he comes to Jesus.
Jairus.
He comes to Jesus and he says, my daughter is sick. She is dying.
She's dying.
Because I want to speak to the reference that was made about Black community, and this is just how their community set up. Truth be told, that's not how our community set up. That's not how our culture is set up. And because things were based and because things have landed in a white supremacy culture, we all are bathed in that stuff. Got to remember what platform I'm on. And so here comes this man. My daughter is dying. Here comes, I talked to him today too. So I'm talking to one of my favorites. You love him too. Y'all go get his book, Politics of Jesus. And I talked to him today, and it stumped him too. He said, I ain't never looked at that like that. I said, because the community is dying. And then here comes something else pulling on it. Because it needs healing too. Because now it has become a systemic issue. And it isn't just three separate people in this story. A man whose daughter is dying and a woman with an issue of blood and Jesus. Nah.
And the daughter who's dying. And the person who's dying. So we always talk about Jairus or Jairus, however you want to pronounce that. But we never really focus on the daughter who is herself sick and cannot get to the one that can heal.
And cannot get there. So here we are with these particular characters in this story. And it's not that they're separate. It's not two different stories that's going on right here. No, it's an infinity of systematic issue that there's not enough for healing to happen for everyone without somebody losing. That's not just their community.
But let's look at this too. That it is a particular community in whom illness, dis-ease, as we call it, disease, has been put upon, because all of them are coming from the same culture.
Whoop.
It has been marginalized and pushed outside of the mainstream because of the prevailing and authoritative group that is in power, who themselves are sick. But our story, much like our media, doesn't talk about the sickness of the predominant culture, because the predominant culture influences the story that we read. That's why when you become a biblicist and you get stuck on this Bible and you don't put it in context, you miss the story and the truth of those who are marginalized, but those who also live within the lines, those who are considered the majority or the powerful. Because truth be told, the powerful are just as sick, but they have access to something we don't have.
Oh, so sit right there. Because that's why I went to this text. I said, okay, God, why am I doing this text? And so here's this man that was supposed to be powerful. But mind you, you're getting mad because the community don't have enough stretch in the resource. And so here comes something out of nowhere that withdraws power from it.
So we look at
that sick community. It's gonna find a way to get to the hem of the garment. It's gonna find a way to get his healing, which might affect you because you continue with the systemic issue. Because you had access and you thought that you had access to this too, because I am me. And
so look at the woman. So look at the woman with the issue of blood, and let's juxtapose her with the Migos.
Okay.
She is a woman who is pushed outside because she has an issue. Play on words.
Mm-hmm.
She has an issue that precludes her from being a part of the community. She's also a woman who at some point had some level of means, but because she is a part of a culture and a part of the margins, she is precluded from access to fullness and full resources. And so the text says that the people crowd around her and won't let her through, so she has to fight and find a way. So she touches the hem because she can't touch him. And so there is although there's a lack of resources in her community, there's always a hope. And so many times they try to take our resources because they're hoping to kill our hope. What do I mean? Watch this, hear this clearly. Watch this. They stop her from reaching, but she says, if I can but touch the hem of his garment. The hem of his garment was the bottom, where if they had been in the temple and he was operating as a priest, the oil would have flowed down to. And it would have had pomegranates there, which represented the flow of the Spirit, and which would have represented the life of God and the Spirit of God on the priest. So she said, if I can but touch that which is beyond this world, I can get what I need in this world. Black folk always have been able to understand how to get beyond this world to get what they need so that they can bring and manifest what's outside of their realm into this realm. So she was touching something. Jairus' understood, my daughter can't get here. So she's stuck in a place that she can't reach because she's precluded, because her illness and her status precludes her from coming into the presence. So he says, but if I can get there, I'm also touching hem. I'm touching him in a way that my daughter will receive what I need, or what she needs by proxy. So I now intercede on her behalf. See, what the Black community is missing is not resources. We are the 10th, the 9th or the 10th at one point, and I may be off on my statistics. I'll go back and look, but if I'm not mistaken, we are the 9th or 10th largest community of spending in the world. That if we were an actual country, GDP wise, what we produce and what we spend, we would be like the 9th or the 10th largest country in the world. Meaning we would have a seat on the UN Council, meaning we would have a seat on NATO, meaning we would have a seat on all of these major organizations. So we don't lack the resources, we lack that when it comes to money. We lack access to those things which bring healing. We lack access to governmental powers and places. So in this year where we're looking, and Raphael Warnock is running for governor, and he is only one of 2 in the last 50 years to actually be a Black person in the government of the and sitting in the Senate. If I'm not mistaken, and I think I'm doing my history right, he's one of 2 in the last 50 years to make it to the Senate as a Black man. It's not that we don't have resources, we have lack of access. And so what we got to stop saying is we need more resources. We got the resources. We need equal access.
Equal access. So again, the title of this Bible study tonight is Built for Infinity Links. Now, y'all gonna be like, how did Margaret do that? But we are built for infinity links. I hope y'all heard how Zay linked that. Again, these are not separate people in random moments in the street. Jesus lived in the radius of all these people. They in community.
Jesus
what
never
happens when we don't have we don't have access. We got the resource. We don't have access to this power. So now here we are just trying to plug in and take what we need so that we can live and survive. And we don't want to call that out, because what does that look like? And so now people get to start speaking over us. Oh, that's just what happens in their community. Oh, that's just their culture. No. So I'm going to argue this is they going to come back on me, but Dr. Sarita Davis said it to me, and she's still my mentor, and I'm going to go with it, until I don't. Black people, we don't have access to our rooted and grounded culture because we were stripped from a land and we were moved into a place and forced to be here. Because of that, we now live in a double consciousness per W.B. Du Bois. Well, I got to learn how to be Black and white at the same time. I say now he's moved to probably a quadruple consciousness, but we'll get on that. That's another Bible study another time. With that being said, we've had to learn how to assimilate and acculturate so that we could go. The woman with the issue of blood, she said, bump all of that. I need to get to where I need to, because now here is the source that is open for me to access. Because it was open access, she did stop the process of what the man thought was going to happen for him. Mind you, that was an open arena for the community to see that here we are now with this pocket of access. We have it. But we so focused on this one thing that happened that we missed. Yeah, it was 2 or 3 mass shootings yesterday.
So I'm going to stick to the text. I'm going to let you. We're gonna flip roles tonight. I'm going to stick to the text. I'm going to let you stick to the current events. And like I said, I'm having some technical difficulties. So forgive me if you don't see my face.
No problem.
But you can hear my voice. Let's talk about the fact that the Migos have reached a certain level that many of us don't reach, as far as notoriety, money, and access to money. But yet this brother still dies because he didn't have access to power.
That.
And so when we look at as Christians, and we look at as Black people, what we're missing is that we're not willing to fight for the access to power. We have done great work and great gains in having access to resources. What we miss is access to real power. That woman with the issue of blood was fighting for access to a power that she did not have. Right. And the people around her precluded her and forced her out because of her issues. So if we don't learn anything else from her, yeah, the church makes it sound good. You have your faith and reach out to the hymn. Let's make this more practical. Have your faith and reach out for the power that will allow you to get the healing and bring the resources that you have into fullness.
Yes.
Because the text says she went to doctors and she spent all that she could. Some text says all that she had, trying to get healed. But it wasn't until she touched the hem or she got access to power. Black community, we need to have, and see, they didn't kill King until he changed from access to resources to access to power. He wasn't a threat until he said, let's all our people combine, poor white people and black folk together, combine, and let's take over this country so that all can have access and all can be taken care of. See, the reason they don't like Obamacare is not because it was just because it's named after Obama. They don't like Obamacare because it gives us access to things we need. See, the issue is not money. They'll throw money at you. Come here, Tyler. Come here, Oprah. But who has the power to determine what's going to be made and what's going to be? Come here, Kanye. Kanye made so much money saying some crazy stuff, but as soon as he touched a community that is considered to have power, everything he had was stripped from him. Goodwill said, don't even accept donations that have Yeezys. Goodwill has changed its donations policy to make sure that anything related to Kanye West is not given or sold in the Goodwill. Because it's about power. Now, as somebody who's doing with the Bible, I'm gonna get back to Mark. I'm gonna let Mark finish what he's saying. But let's talk about power. When Jesus dies, he dies as a direct court because he was attacking power and systems. Yeah, he died for our sins. That sounds good. That's the spiritual aspect. Oh, the blood still works. I will shout off of it when my body heals. The blood still works. It is a wonderful ideal. The blood still works. The blood is. I'm not going to go in with y'all because I felt something about the blood. The blood still works. The blood keeps us. When you can't say nothing else, I dare you to be in trouble and just scream the blood. And the blood, and see, and demons and spirit know when you say the blood. You ain't even got to say the blood of Jesus. Just say the blood. They know which blood because no other blood has power to make them move. So both demonic or spiritual. So I dare you just to scream the blood and just watch what happens. So I'm not denigrating or lowering the blood because I am sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost, with the evidence of speaking in tongues. I believe in the blood. But it's beyond the blood. Jesus dies for so much more. This is a political and this is a social movement that deals with power. And this is the first thing Jesus says when Jesus comes back in Jesus' fullness form, now that he has become fully man and fully God, because he's not fully man and fully God until death. Somebody gonna fight with me, but you go look at the text. Go look at the text. He is not fully God and fully man until death. And that's when he walks in that Messiah and Christology that he becomes. It is what, but the first thing he says when he comes back, because I feel Jesus, the first thing he says when he comes back is he says, this power that I have, this power that I have, I now give to you. So what they're fighting for is the power that God has given us. We have a power to shift things, but we don't get it because they take it and they try to force it, and we don't realize it. See, when you realize the power that you have, not just the money, not just the talent, not just the gifts, but the power that we have as a unified body. That's what the text talks about when it says we all are parts of the body and we all have something to do. See, a body with one leg is less powerful than a body with two.
So what you're saying is we built for infinity links. I'm gonna keep on saying it.
And so when we talk about infinity, infinity means going beyond time. Infinity goes on. It is something that does not die. It is energy. It is spirit. And so what we're missing, if we keep it in touch, because I'm gonna keep the Bible tonight. If we look at the text, power. When Jesus says, and this power that I have, I give unto you, this power that is in my hand that I have, this is the word exousia. It's a Greek word. It's a Greek / Aramaic word, whichever one it is. It's New Testament, so it's Greek or Aramaic. I don't have my stuff in front of me, but Bible scholars understand what I'm saying. It's a Greek or Aramaic word that is exousia, which is where we get the word authority. Jesus does not talk, because we all have dunamis power automatically, because we can make stuff move. We can pick stuff up. We can blow stuff up. We can shoot stuff up. We can punch stuff. But exousia means I have the authority to now use the dunamis that I've already inherited. And so what we're fighting against is not flesh and blood, but this is a spiritual war about the authority to use what we have. So when this boy died, he stood up in a power. And whatever demon was there didn't like the fact that this boy who looked like something else stood up and spoke truth to power. So everybody wants power, but nobody wants to go through what it takes to get it. You know, I'm a simple dude. I grew up loving Marvel comics. And so Spider-Man, when he gets bit by the spider, depending on which version you read, when he gets bit by the spider, some of his powers are automatic. Some of his powers are latent. He don't realize what he got until he absolutely has to use it. But something happens where he realizes he now has a strength that he did not have. And so he goes to a particular place. But because he has become so dejected by life, because his parents are not around, and he's being raised by his older aunt and uncle. He's an orphan. And so uncle tells him, with great power comes great responsibility, because he lets this man go who he could have stopped. And the very man he let go is the very man who kills his uncle. We have allowed the enemy to come into our community, and we could have stopped them. But because we have become so dejected and so apathetic to life, because we just worried about getting our own resources, that we have denied the power which we were given by Christ, that this power I now have, and we have allowed the enemy to come in and keep killing our own when we could have stopped them.
Now stay right there, because you said you stand in the text. Because when the death happens, the servants tell Jairus, she's just dead. Don't bother with the master coming. Something about our community, when that pull happens, we lose steam too. And there has to be some level of reminder that no, there's still life left, because we now have the source of life present. Because we miss that too.
We miss it because we think death is final. I'm trying to make it plain.
But that's fair. I want to give it to our community, because death has been so prevalent in our community. One of our classmates asked today, how are we defining culture? You want to know from a sociologist's point of view, how are we defining culture? And I came back and I said, well, I invite you to read Resmaa Menakem's book, My Grandmother's Hands. I invite everybody to go get that book, because his definition of culture is hard, cold. It's like we take trauma and we have now called it our culture, because that's where we sit. And then the other thing I'm going to offer it one more time, and then because they're going to take us in the text, is that Black people, we've had to create and patchwork things to create what is the substance of what we call culture, because we all don't have a collective mindset to reconnect to what we know, because it has been demonized, it has been stripped. In some places, it has been pathologized, and we have been told that it's evil and that it's wrong. And so therefore, here comes this link that is trying to be broken, but there's something about life inside of who we are as Black people. They said it. We know how to get back up. We don't know how initially, but we got up, because we have access to stuff But it's like when we get a taste of that power, because the invite for the woman who touched the hem was not just for that to be a healing for herself to take on. That's why she mentioned all the doctors she went to. That's why it happened in front of the people. It created a link to the power. And even though while waiting, something died, here's the reminder that the people didn't see. Here's the link to the power.
And it restored her to the culture. So what is culture? Culture.
I'm gonna.
Because while she had the issue, she was supposed to live on the outskirts of town. Which for me, in the way I think is, if she's supposed to live on the outskirts of town, how does she use all that she has to get healed, and she cannot be healed if by Jewish culture, she's supposed to be on the outside of the town? And that means that nobody is supposed to come in contact with her or touch her, lest they become unclean and they are removed from the culture. So that means that there is something in the text that somebody's not telling us. There's something in the text that's left out, in that we have to look and we have to use our sanctified imagination to realize that because of her power and her wealth, she was allowed to stay in the culture or to stay in the community until she could no longer afford to be in the culture and in the community. And so what we're talking about now is that we push people out who cannot afford to pay, and we accept certain things. But what is culture? I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to let you deal with that. I'm going to let you deal with that. I'm going to let you deal with what it is to be a part of culture, but yet be ostracized by the very culture that you've invested in. So what is culture? Culture is simply this. It is three major forms of that we talk about culture. One is medical. You take a culture of something. You take something and you put it in a petri dish and you look at it and you understand and you dissect it and you study it to see what it is so that you know how to handle it. But also the culture is the arts, the manifestation of human intellectual achievement that is regarded collectively by a group of people who are like each other. The second one is the culture, the arts, the social institution, and the achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group. That is what culture is. So when we define culture, we're talking about what is it that we have that makes us alike? What is it that we do that makes us connected? So when you talk about culture, but when we talk about culture, we're also talking about that thing we can look at to see what it is and how it's growing. And so there's a culture of death in our community because when we were brought over here under the guise of death. There's a culture of struggle within our community because there's not only something called culture, there's something called subcultures. Those are many cultures within the predominant mainline culture. And so when we talk about the culture of death, there's a culture of death that has been superimposed upon us by Caucasian European Eurocentric thought. There is a subculture of struggle, because in Africa we struggled, but we didn't struggle how we struggled when we came over here to the fields and we were taken to the sugarcane in the Caribbeans and we were broken because they called it breaking the slave. And so there is a culture. And so scientifically, that culture is now in our DNA. Because scientifically, if you do the study sociologically and psychologically, you realize that Black folk hold within their DNA a culture that comes out of slavery. They hold a remnant of, so the trauma that slavery brought, we carry within our DNA. Hence, we have higher rates of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, addiction, and other malformities because of the DNA that we carry, because of the culture that has been superimposed upon our DNA. That is why when you look at Native Americans, they have a high rate of alcoholism and death from alcohol because when the Europeans came over here, they gave them smallpox and alcohol to take them and dull them. Well, we have the trauma. So when we look at Black families, we're not successful in Black families that are Americanized or that come out of America unless we're hard workers. So we'll support the person who's on drugs, the person who makes bad choices, but who goes to work every day. But we won't support the person who's in college and needs help getting a degree, because at least the person who beat their wife got drugs, had all these babies, was working every day, and you just going to school. I know it because I've had it happen to me. I went to a particular church and I asked a particular pastor to help me go on a trip for school that he recommended I go to. He gave me balled up ones and fives and pretty much threw it across the table at me. But there was another brother in the same church who had multiple children by multiple girls, and he helped him pay his child support so he wouldn't go to jail.
So we got issues. That's why I wanted to do the in-between work. Because again, there was something alive that was dying, and then something had to tap into power.
I hope I
Because
made
the power source wasn't accessible to everybody at the same time for some strange reason, even though they realized the power source was there, and then something died.
I hope I made sense, Margaret.
Oh, you made all the sense, because I'm finna be in the text because something was alive. Here's this burst of alive, because I'm not comparing anybody in this text, because ain't nobody in this text white. I'm not comparing anybody in this text to be white. Our communities, I'm going to use the term BIPOC. I can't halfway stand it, but our Black and Indigenous communities have this limited access to power, even though there are resources. And what happens? We are all trying to grab for it at the same time, which may cause something to die because we still haven't realized we are with the power source.
And I would argue with you, Margaret, not against anything else you said, but I would argue that there is somebody white in the text.
Ooh.
There's somebody white in the text that we don't mention because we don't like to read the text that way. And that is the Roman government, which makes the fight for power necessary. And so, although they're not directly named, because when you do with English and reading, you know that there are some characters that are they're there, and then there are some characters and some things that are implied. In the text, if you read it correctly, there's an implied link to the Roman culture, because at the time the text is written, Rome has taken over, and Rome has enslaved and pushed those who are Jewish to the margins. Hence the reason why Jairus has to go to Jesus and not to a doctor. Because he's pushed to the. Hence the reason why the woman with the issue of blood has to touch the hem, but she can't get to a place that will help her. Hence the reason why when we go further and we talk about Jesus and his own struggles, that Jesus has to be taken before Pilate, and Pilate refuses to kill him, but Pilate gives the word to go and kill him because the people want it, because Pilate is Roman, but he's also dealing with Jewish people, and he's trying to maintain a level of influence and power. See, this is not.
You better talk, Zay.
This is not about money, because you can have money and still have no power.
Because I got to maintain power. So, last week, 2 weeks ago, we said in Randall Bailey, our rabbi. He said right there, he leaned in. You know what his sound is when he leans in. You already know. He comes in, and he lands as hard as you just did about this power. We have to find a way to convince the oppressed. We have to find a way to convince the margins that they have access to power if they climb and fight for it,
without them becoming the oppressor. So I'm gonna do my best Randall Bailey imitation. So we have preachers who themselves have been marginalized because of their own sexual preference. Yet they stand in the pulpit and preach against who they are because they cannot accept what will happen because of who they are. Oh, you know them. You know some of their well names. I will not call their names now. But you know them. And so that's my good Randall Bailey imitation. Now you don't get stuck on the imitation, but hear what I said. Hear what I said when I was imitating Randall Bailey, because what I said was true. Is that when we talk about power, there are people who will live in shadows, the darkness, so that in the light they can maintain power. And they will denigrate See, I'm not talking about people who keep a personal life. I'm not talking about that. Because what's your life is your life, and what's personal is personal, and what you deem as personal is personal, and what you deem as public is public. That is your choice. But what I'm talking about are those who live in the shadows and the darkness, but in public denigrate the very thing that they are because they want to maintain power. Where are you getting that from? Well, look at Peter. Peter was Jesus's right hand, one of Jesus's right hand men, but yet 3 times he denied Jesus because in public he did not want to be seen connected. In private, he was crying and he was going through because he was losing somebody he loved. John, the beloved prophet, stands with him in private to the point to where Jesus entrusts his mother to John. Although Jesus had brothers, and he had a brother named John. I wish I had time. I wish I had time. And so he had a brother named John, but he had a beloved named John. I feel something. I wish I had time. And so he doesn't entrust his mother to his brother John. He entrusts his mother to his beloved John. Is it John or James? I think his brother name was.
He had a brother named James.
Brother named James. I said John. I'm sorry. I'm getting excited. So his brother named James, but he entrusts not his mother to his brother James, who would have, by Jewish tradition, been the next in line because he would have been the next oldest to carry the family and to take care of Mother Mary. But Jesus entrusts Mother Mary to John. That is a power dynamic, because if I entrust my mama to you, that means that I've entrusted some of my resources to you so that my mama will be maintained. Yet he takes the other feminized character in the book that he loves, the church. We feminize the church and make her a she. He gives that to Peter, which implies a power struggle and a power shift. And so when we talk about power, we're talking about this access to not dunamis power, because we all can do that. Anybody can now walk into a store in Georgia and buy a gun. That's dunamis. Dunamis is dynamic, meaning we can make something happen. We can change something. We can cause something to have power. We can use a power, a force that changes. That's dynamic power. But what we're talking about is authority, access to power to make things official. See, authority is a different level of power. And many of us think because we can pick up stuff, we can move stuff, we can shoot stuff, we can handle stuff, that gives us a power. But that is not real power, because the real power comes for those who don't have to shoot and don't have to hit. The real power comes from those who can just sign their name and things change. See, when we talk about power, we're talking about an Elon Musk who can walk into a room and say, I want your company because I don't think you're doing it right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to the people, although you started it, I'm going to talk to the people who now sit on your board, and I'm going to promise them that they're going to get more money if they let me have what you created. And see, I would think black folk will understand it, especially Black Baptist folk. Especially Black Baptist folk who are in the rural areas and in the South, because Black Baptist folks in rural and southern areas understood that the pastor had a dunamis power, could move the people, could shout them, make them feel good, but the Azusi allowed with the deacon board.
So, because the other reason I brought this up is because the next thing they would say was gun control. Now, I wrote a piece today, and I said, we keep talking about gun control. The piece was about, the question was, what can the church do about gun violence? And I said, well, first you have to acknowledge the reasons the guns are here. Because they were a means of controlling and dehumanizing with the maximum amount of force that was connected to whatever they perceived to be power. That's what I said.
Or perceived to be a threat. Because when we talk about access to guns, That did not include black people at first
Right.
because they were not considered citizens.
They were not considered human. So let's just keep going.
That's I wouldn't even go in there now. The Constitution gave our people the rights to weapons and to guns as a means for George Washington to be able to call upon a militia at any given moment because they had stolen land from Native Americans and they were fighting for their freedom from European control.
My God.
Specifically, United Kingdom.
My God.
And so when they say that you had a right to bear arms, that was so that when they called you, you would already be prepared. Because one of the slogans was take up arms and fight or something to that nature when America was in 1770s and before we get to 1776, the 4th of July, which we understand now that many of the signers of the Declaration of Independence didn't sign it on July 4th. They signed it on different days. But July 4th becomes the day that we accept it. And so that's what we celebrate. What's I'm talking about? It's about power.
Power.
It's about power. It's about power. It's about this whole thing that we've been talking about when we talk about the woman's right to choose and the woman's right to have an abortion. It's about power. So we have white men who got together in a room with a few white women who are submissive to that white male masculine power, who co-signed that so that white men would have authority over whether or not, because let's be truthful, most of the governors in our country are white men. Most of our Supreme Court justices are white and or white men or people who ascribe to whiteness. Even Clarence Thomas, who comes out of Pinpoint, Georgia. And if you've ever been to Pinpoint, Georgia, I have. It is literally a one-way street outside of Savannah. That's why he can't say certain words. And that's why he doesn't talk often in front. It's because he did not have the educational experience that others had until he got older. So he writes everything because his education allowed him to become erudite in his writing, whereas he lacks in his speech because of his speech impediment, because of where he was surrounded by and what he heard. And so because that has given him what he perceives to be a level of power, he will protect that. The same thing with Ben Carson, whose mama and daddy were on welfare and he went through certain issues. Now he supports something that's going to help him to maintain a certain level of power. That is why some men said that women can't preach, and some men said that women can't pastor, and some men said that in their vows, the woman must listen and obey. Never in the Bible did you see where it said a woman must obey her husband. It said that the two shall become one. That means that the authority and the power that the one have, the other one now shares. But we don't take it that way because we want to maintain a level of power.
But as we should, like again, because we preaching the in between. But I want y'all to know the verses. Something was alive when it was trying to get the power source to come to it. Something interrupted the power source getting to it. This young woman, this little girl, because it needed to take the power to live, to affect community. Here is this link. Here is this infinity link. The healings they said came to this woman, which busted back through community because people got so distraught and finding out later, okay, the little girl is dead. Still ain't realizing that the power is there with you. Like some of us haven't got that. We had so much tragedy, but what happens when Black community can recognize that we actually have? Zay, you said it. I don't even know if you realize you said it. Within the Black church community, it don't mean you have to go to church. We've all been affected by a Black church somehow. We have the power. One has the dynamic, the dunamis. One has this
Azusia
power. The community itself, it isn't just with the deacons. We have Azusia power and not realizing that we got it right there. So how do we reform? How do we change? When we recognize that somebody tried to strip us of our power, but it's still there.
Let's look at Lazarus. Mary, whom Jesus who is another beloved disciple and apostle of Jesus. Mary Magdalene says, my brother wouldn't have died if thou had only been here. Jesus weeps, goes to the place where Lazarus is dead. And he says to Lazarus, Lazarus, come forth. That ain't the shouting part for me.
Mm-mm.
The shouting part is when Lazarus comes out the grave. The text says he was stinking dead, meaning that the worms and the maggots and the signs of decomposition had already started to hit his body. But when he said, Lazarus, come forth, Lazarus walks out of the grave. That still ain't the shouting part.
It ain't come through.
The shouting part comes when he says, loose him and let him go. And the community takes off the death clothes that they wrapped him in. I feel something. Okay. Look at the girl who's dead, and he says, Talitha Kumai. She's already dead, and they have taken her into a room, an upper room, because they are mourning what is dead. And he says, Talitha Kumai. And when he says it, it literally translates, little daughter, get up. Come here, daughter. She gets up and she walks, although she has been dead, and she's been dead long enough for the community to come and surround her. He says, get out the room, because she and I, although she's dead, have to have a talk. Talitha Kumai. Okay. Look at the boy whose mama prays for a son. And she's now talking. I believe it's Paul. I believe it's Paul. And she's now talking. I believe it's Paul, but I ain't got my Bible in front of me. So I couldn't. But she prayed for this boy. He prophesied she'll get the boy. The boy then has he has an aneurysm and he dies. He goes and lays on top of the boy and breathes on the boy, and the breath of the life comes back. What do all these stories have in common? Is that when death looks like it is the end of something, it is really the beginning of something new coming back. And that is really the community coming together to witness the rebirth of something else.
That's all I was trying to say tonight, Zay. Because something is an infinity link. Because we built on infinity links. Y'all, I hope y'all heard this tonight. We built on infinity links. Don't let people try to pour over you what they think that you are. That this is just their culture. This is just their community. This is just We're built on infinity links. It took a woman to pause that power movement to set up another new movement inside of another resurrected moment. Please understand that shift and that movement and that transfer of currency. Get it, y'all. Somebody is dying. That person ends up dead. Here's this transfer of currency.
That was not Paul. I forgot. I was excited.
It was a lot.
That was Elijah. Listen, I want to be clear because I don't want the biblical scholars.
But I don't want them either. But we're gonna bring it forward because resurrection ain't started with Christ, and y'all about to fight. Y'all gonna throw a shoe at the computer. We have had this infinity link of power for however long we have existed. We have this ability as the Imago Dei to call a void into being something great. They started this thing a whole month ago and said, honor the darkness, because this is the very thing that gets you to the next beginning. Listen.
I'm going to mess with them. I'm going to mess with white supremacy.
Go mess with it.
Black folk have always been able to live in two realms, and when one realm seemingly looked like it was done, they could speak life and speak into another realm and bring it back. The Egyptians were known for this. This is why they mummified and did their bodies the way they did them, because they believed that when you died, the body may be gone, but your spirit would live on, and your spirit would need something to have as a reminder. So they would put in the tomb money, food, and they would even make soldiers so that the king and the queens would have somebody to protect them. Not only did the Africans do it, but the Asians did it as well. They would build for their leadership, for their leaders. They would build the same thing, and they would put in there things that they thought you would need for the afterlife. It is only Eurocentric idea that says that anything dead is dead. Anything that dies is over with. That is Eurocentric thought. And so when they buried you, they burned you. They put you in fire. They threw you out in the water because Europeans thought death was the end. But anybody who was connected, who came directly out of Afrocentric or Afro descendants, understood that the afterlife was just the means to another stepping stone. So Black folk have always understood that infinity really lives not so much in abstract, but lives in manifestation or in something that is real. That they understand that I can now speak and move beyond realms. See, and y'all don't like this type of talking because you want to be deep. But if you are a prophet, you live in two realms. Because you live in a realm where you walk in the earth, but you can speak to something that ain't even here. If you are a seer and you see beyond this, so that means that we have access. The Bible says that when Job is being tested, Satan leaves earth and goes into heaven. But that ain't the part that gets me. Not only is Satan allowed there, but there are others who go back and forth between the realms and are coming before God to talk to God. See, it's a whole sermon to deal with the fact that Satan still has access to God. That's a whole nother sermon, because some of y'all want to call stuff demonic, but it got more access than you got. And so I wish I had real time to deal with it. But it's the fact that there were others who were going, I'm preaching the text. It was others who had time to go back and forth between the realms. And so we get scared and we don't want to deal with that when we see somebody who is authentically able to see into the realm. That's how we as prophets are able to hear. It's because we live in two different realms. Yet y'all shout and scream when you talk about the fourfold ministry gift. I know y'all said I'm wrong. I ain't wrong. And when I was wrong, I corrected myself.
You ain't wrong because the text said. The text said right there, Jesus is walking crowded by the people, but could feel somebody pull on him. Baby, that's two ranks.
It's fourfold ministry, because the pastor and the teacher is actually one fold that we like to separate, and that's why our churches are dying. It's because we got a bunch of folk being pastors but who ain't teaching nothing. But see, this is the thing: the pastor and teacher. And so then there's the pastor, the teacher, the evangelist, the prophet, and the apostolic or the apostle. So there's a fourfold ministry gift, and those fourfold ministry gifts are able to live in different realms. Even the evangelist has to move between realms because they have to be able to speak to the people who don't know who God is. Even the evangelist has to move between realms and who doesn't see God, so that it can help bring God into their lives. The pastor helps us to walk out our relationship with God and teaches us the steps. The prophet speaks those things that God has already done. See, only the prophet can see God's forward but the rest of us only see God's back. And so that's why we can shout of what God has done, but it's hard for us to see and to shout of what God is doing unless we can see beyond where we are. And then the apostle establishes what God has already established in earth. And so one of my favorite scriptures says, whatsoever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. Whatsoever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. I know y'all saying, Zay, what the heck does that do what you're talking about? Well, let me help you. Because when you look at that text and you put it in context and you look at what it really means, when it says whatsoever you bind, if you go and you do the translation, it says what you bind now has already been bound in heaven. What you loose on earth has already been loosed in heaven. This is the part that shocks me every time I read this scripture. Is that word loosed translate to the word we use in English called pulverize. That text is another text about the power that we have. That heaven gives us a power that we don't use. It doesn't mean let go or push away from us. No, 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 no. That's why some of us still dealing with stuff. I almost cussed that we've been dealing with because we loosen and binding stuff we should not be loosening and binding. You need to bind the enemy, but when you bind him, you also got to loosen. You got to destroy him. You got to pulverize him. You got to break what he got over your life. And so when you understand that when I lose something, heaven has already done it, because heaven can't be behind. Heaven has to be ahead of us. So when I get ready to start loosing and binding, heaven has to already do it. Nothing in God's word we can go against. So that means that if I'm going to loosen and bind it, it has to already been done in heaven. So when I see disease and I have faith, there's a power in me that can say, I loose disease from my family and I bind it from my family. That means I gather it together and then I destroy it. I cut it down. So God shall cut down the wheat from the tare. That means that I have an authority when I speak to a thing. So when demons come in my life, they say, Jesus, I know. This one I know, but you I know not, because you don't operate in the power or the authority that when something happens, I can speak to it. And when I speak to it, heaven has to back me up, because heaven can't be behind me. Heaven has to be in front of me. It has to be ahead of me. So when Jesus takes Moses, I feel preaching. When Jesus takes Moses into the cleft of the rock, Jesus is showing Moses what Moses already has. And he's showing Moses what I've already done, so that Moses could come down out the mountain and walk ahead and walk before the people to know what's already been done, because I saw his back. I saw what he's already, because God didn't operate in what I'm getting ready to do. God operates in what I've already done. I've already healed you. I've already delivered you. I've already brought you out. I've already restored your family. I've already healed your kids. I've already healed your family, your marriage. I've already given you the wealth, because I'm showing you what I've already done. You can't handle what I'm getting ready to do, so I can only show you what I've already done. It's already done. I've already got the authority. So the boy died, but he died because it was already done. He died because it was already there. Jesus died, and the book says, God, my witness, it says, the book says, and he was the Lamb crucified before the very foundation. It was already done. You just walking it out, because I'm showing you my back. I'm showing you what I've done. I'm showing you where I'm going. I'm showing you what has happened. The church has missed the power because we're too busy looking at what is now, and we forgot what God has already done. God's already promised us that we're going to lead. You shall be the head and not the tail. You shall be above and not beneath. It's already done. I'm showing you my back, because you can't handle how I'm going to do what I've already done. It's because if I show you the front, I've got to show you the process in which it takes to get you to what I've already done. I'm going to say this. This is my last example, and I'm done. My daddy calls me the fruit of his loins, and he does it to bother me, and he gets a kick out of it, because although I know what it took to get me here, I don't want to know what it took to get me here. And so, as it was in the beginning, when my daddy and my mama got together, I don't want to know what happened when they got together. I can't handle the front parts. But I can handle the fact that I know I'm here. So when God shows you, God is showing you what you can't deal with. When God says, I'm going to hide you in the cleft of the rock. Now, that is a Christological implication. That's a Christological implication when it says, I'm going to hide you in the cleft of the rock, because the rock that the builders rejected, the stone that the builders rejected, is Jesus. And when Jesus gets ready to create the church, he calls Peter, because Peter becomes Petros, a chip off of the block. And so when Jesus is saying, I'm hiding you in the cleft of the rock, what I'm showing you is I'm hiding you in Jesus. I'm hiding you in something you have not yet experienced, but has already been established. I can't deal with how, I don't want to know what my parents did to get me. I know what they did, but I don't want to know. But I am the proof that what they've already done has been solidified because I'm here. So Jesus hides me in Jesus himself so that I can understand and handle what God has already done. Because I can't look at the front. The front is too much for me. My mind can't process it. But I can understand what God has already done. I hope I made sense.
You did. We moved to Exodus. I don't care though, because I think the people needed that tonight. It literally summed up this whole moment about power. Already having access to it and reclaiming it.
You
like
just got
if God has already done it. If God has already done it, Jesus is hiding us in himself. Then we already have power. Quit going around owning and trying to claim things that don't belong to you.
So you got to claim. You already got it. You already got it. So I dare you. See, when I preach, I always give the people something to take home with them. And I'm trying not to preach, but I done got happy.
And you done preach now. I'm just sitting over here quiet because I ain't got nothing else to say. Finish your sermon.
I dare you to walk in your house and begin to declare it's already done. I dare you to take your bills and lay your hands on it and say, I got the power. It's already done. I dare you to lay hands on something that looks dead and that looks over, and to call it forth and say, it's already done. See, I know in my spirit, see, my flesh wrestle with my spirit because my spirit knows it's already done. It's handled. My spirit ain't got no problem with God. It's my flesh that wrestle with, because my flesh wants to sometimes rationalize it. And although God speaks to us in our intellect, my flesh has to make it make logical sense. But when I let my spirit take over, I know my body is already healed. I know that the devil can't do more than what God allows the devil to do. And if God allows it, I've already won because the Lord set up my win from my battle. So I want to speak to about 3 people. I feel the anointing. There's about 3 people who are wrestling with something and dealing with something, and you said, I needed a word from the Lord. I don't know how it's going to go. It's the 3 people. I don't know your names, although I'm starting to hear names. I will not call them now. There are 3. The Lord said it's already done. You just got to walk in it. Because your destiny is not built upon the report that you got, but your destiny is built upon the word of the Lord. So whose report will you believe? We shall believe because we got the power. And how do we have the power? How do you believe the report of the Lord? You begin to declare it. So I dare you to start declaring what the Lord said, because when you start declaring, the report shifts according to the word. And we shall have the power of life and death in our tongue. Because we have the exousia of God. Because he was the firstborn of many that shall come. Who is he? Jesus. So if he is our firstborn, and since he is now the heir gets to speak to his brothers and sisters and tell them what they can do. And he said, this power that I have, I now give unto you. So speak it. Because the God, the parent, gave it to the son, the heir. And the son, being the heir, can now speak to the brothers and sisters, because he's the firstborn. So by Jewish tradition, that means he gets the rights to all the stuff. And when he says, this what I have, I now give to you, that means now legally I have the same rights as my big brother. So I dare you to begin to declare the word of the Lord.
Combs, you better preach.
I dare you. This thing shall not be unto death. I'm done. I'm done because I feel it, and this is not going to be a prophetic service. And we have gone over an hour. God bless you. God's face shine upon you.
We built on infinity links. He prayed us like, y'all be blessed. You done told these people up. People popping on. So you need to move how you need to, because I'm not hitting this end button because there's something else. And I'm gonna
Oh,
be
I'm
that
done.
sister.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I'm not cave. I'm not cave. I can't do this. I can't do this in cave.
I ain't gonna
Cave,
tell him you said that either.
and that's a compliment, B Cave. That's a compliment.
It is a huge compliment, but sir, because we doing
Sewell,
infinity links. You hear me? You kept. Oh God.
Prophet Sewell, I can't do what you do. I can't do it like y'all. I can't do it. I don't know how y'all put it up. I don't know how y'all handle it. I'm making myself come down, but I hear the Lord. I hear
You
the
need
Lord.
to speak then.
I hear the Lord, and it's working out for somebody. It's 3 people who came on here. This is a small night. This ain't our normal night of how many folk we got. This is a normal, and we got folk who don't normally come on. And I hear the Lord saying that there is a ministry that is being birthed out of somebody that they cannot do. But one of those people is Margaret. She has to birth out this ministry. But Greg Sewell, I hear you. I hear the Lord clearly that you cannot go back. Yes, you've had some ups and downs. Yes, you've had some stuff going on lately, and you've thought about it, but you cannot go. Ashley Pearson, there is something more in you beyond just preaching. There is something more in you that you have to release. There is something more in you that you got to release. I can't do this tonight, y'all. I am done because I got to get up and go to work in the morning. But I hear the Lord. There is about 3 of you who said, I needed a word. The word of the Lord is for you, that the 3 of you who said, I need the word. The word of the Lord is for you that is already done. You have to let go. You cannot hold on to what you know and what you thought. You have to let go, because the infinity links is that we are connected to something greater and to something that is eternal. And so that this eternal thing is going to keep going. I keep hearing the word 3. And so there is 3. I told my friend, I said, I keep hearing death. And there will be more deaths. And I told her at the beginning of the year, I said, there are 6 deaths that are going to happen in the religious world. Well, the 6th one that I thought just happened. The 6th one, I didn't know the names, but the 6th one just happened. So I'm telling you, when I say I hear 3, there is 3. It's going to happen in 3s for some people. For some people, it may be 3 weeks, it may be 3 months, it may be 3 years. But God says the number of 3 is happening, and it's going to happen. It's already happened. You're waiting for the manifestation of it. You're waiting for the manifestation of it. God, you're not waiting on God. God is waiting on you to surrender to it. I keep hearing 3. 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 There's somebody on here who's worried about their grandson. You don't need to worry about your grandson. Your grandson is protected. You just got to love him. There's somebody on here who has yet to comment because they are afraid if I call them, I'm going to say something to them that is going to, but you don't have to worry about the rest of your family. That is not your assignment. Your assignment is to pray for them. See, Saturday I was supposed to die. I was supposed to die. I dare not go into too much because my mama may be watching, and she don't know all of it. My sister, who is like Margaret would tell you, me and my sister are like the same brain. So my sister waited till she came into my room in the hospital, and she waited till nobody was in there, and she told me, I know what happened. And she literally told me, and I started laughing. I said, how do you know? You must have talked to Margaret. She said, no, but I know because I saw what I saw. And I know what happened. She said, and she said the stuff that me and her, the way she talked to me, the way she and I talked to each other. I was supposed, Margaret knows, and I'm not going to go too deep in it because I just don't need to, but I was supposed to die. It was an attack. And I'm not going to be too deep in spiritual because that's not this platform. We don't get that type of deep. But
I
it
don't
was an
think they
attack.
care. You need to say this because this was a matter of life and death, Zay. It sure was. And then
It was
it
an
kept
attack. It was an attack by a witch. And I know it was. I saw the witch when she spoke over my car miles before it happened. I saw it. Um, and I played into the witch's setup. I saw it. I saw the witch. I saw it. I say that to tell you is that I'm still alive because there was something for me to pour out. And Margaret called and she said, "Oh, Tuesday gonna be off the chain." Um, I'm saying that to say is that some of us here who are watching and who will watch the replay have lived through a deathly situation. And I said it the way I said it. I know that that may not be the correct English, but that's the way I'm hearing it. We have lived through a deathly situation. And we didn't live through it just to live through it. But this deathly situation was the preparation for the life that's coming. Because the life that's coming requires a level of authority that you can only get when you live through death. So I know I ain't crazy because somebody just wrote a fire, a whole house collapse. So
But she's still here. She's still here. That's why she's typing, and she's still here.
I don't know who it is
I do.
because I can't see the name. All I'm seeing is Facebook user. There is about to be more attacks on the body of Christ. And those who walk in the way of Jesus and the way of Christ. But those attacks will not take us down or take us out. Those attacks are setting us up for the next dimension, the next level, the next manifestation of the power in which God has given us. Wherever there is death, there is always rebirth. If we really understood the power of baptism, every baptism service would end up being a praise and worship service and not just a part of the Sunday morning worship. Because baptism literally means that one body is going into the water, the womb, to be reborn, and for that body that was there before to die. And when it comes out the womb, out the water, it is a new body that has been reborn. It is supposed to reenact the death, the burial, and the resurrection of that which we say we follow. For the Catholics, they call it a sacrament. For the Protestants, we call it a commandment. But for those of us who move beyond those types of, it is literally the acknowledgement that something has to die in order for something else to get life. All I'm saying to you is that what you're going through is your new baptism. So there are businesses that are about to shift. There are ministries that have shifted, you just didn't realize it. And what looks like a failure is really God setting you up for a massive success.
God. My God.
This is the end of the struggle. Because God cannot lie. In fact, when God makes a promise, the Bible says that God does not swear by anything but God's self, because there is nothing. And so when God makes a promise, for God it is not a promise, it is a covenant. And every covenant has to have three parts. The two parts that's taking part in the covenant and the witness. So when God made a covenant with you, God said there is no witness that is strong enough to be a witness to who I am. So I have to be my own witness. And so God bifurcates God's self so that God can be both witness and participant in the covenant. And so the promise becomes law, because when God speaks, God cannot lie. And so because God swears upon God's self, whatever God promised you has to happen, because God's self is looking at God saying, you said it. And so unless you break this promise, you will make yourself a lie, and you will make all that is God wrong. So if God promised you that you would go to nations, you are going to nations. You just got to understand what the nations are for you. If God said you shall be healed, you shall be healed. Because the book says that there is a tree that grows in the middle of the earth, of heaven. There are multiple trees that grows in the middle, but there's one in particular I'm talking about whose leaves are for the healings of the nation. And so whether you see the healing here or you see the healing there, God will not lie. You will be healed. Now the question is, and your faith has to be, whether or not you begin to declare and begin to petition God that your healing be on this side. Because some healings and some breakthroughs, God is not going to let you get by proxy. It's going to have to be your word. See, Jairus' daughter got hers by proxy because she could not speak. But God is waiting on you to speak. Okay, and now I'm done. Y'all not going to push me to be more than what I am. I am not Greg Sewell. I am not B. Cave. I ain't even Jared Shaw.
Lord, we're going to have to get him on. You done brought his name. Oh, Lord. Listen, y'all, we love y'all. Y'all heard this man. He don't even know what happened to me today, because we was late because I had to have a meeting with a place that I would thoroughly enjoy that is putting me through. And when he sat there and said, but you're going to have to go get it, like my mentor at the end of the call was like, you may not see the benefit of the hell that you're going through right now, but it's not benefiting just you. The healing will come to you from it, but it's going to benefit an entire community of therapists that keep failing, not realizing that this death is to lead to greater heights and resurrection. Now, first of all, that wasn't anything Jesus or nothing. She wasn't using her Bible because that ain't her. And for him to sit here and say that, that's all I got to say. Y'all be blessed. Y'all know who he was talking to. Some of y'all I know who he was talking to. There ain't none of my business to tell. But I'm telling you, y'all better walk with it. Yeah, you walk with it. Because some things, they look like they about to die. Some things actually die. But resurrection is necessary. Death is necessary for resurrection, and resurrection is necessary for the energy, the anointing, the power to move through our communities. We got power. We have resources. And I hope we're going to find access. Boy, you preach tonight. Good night. Oh, you made all the sense. You don't bless these people. We finna get out of here. We love y'all. Be blessed. We'll catch y'all next week.